My name's Scott Whitehair. I don't know if I mentioned that, and I'm gonna start you guys off with my own story tonight. I didn't know how to dress, and that's been true for most of my life, but in this particular moment, especially so. I thought that probably a Pearl Jam t-shirt and a hoodie were too little, and I thought a tie and a coat was probably too much. So I was wavering, and I was trying on clothes and throwing them on my bed, throwing them all over. My little studio apartment was starting to look like a dressing room at TJ Maxx. I knew I needed something with a collar, but which one? I had lost so much weight, and I had such little budget for clothing that most of my dress clothes made me look like a preschooler about to finger paint. But I wanted to try. I wanted it to be clear that I made an effort. It was important to me. But I didn't know how people dressed for something like this. So finally, I looked and I realized time was getting short. And I could not be late. I'm always late, and I always say I can't be late. But on this day, I couldn't be late. So I grabbed a shirt off the top of the pile and started to button it as I ran down the stairs and headed to the train. As I got on the Brown line at Western, I wondered, when I came back here a few hours earlier, if I would feel like the same person. As I walked through the car, I found a seat and sat down. And that's all I did. I just sat. I didn't bring earbuds. I didn't have a book. I didn't get out my phone. Because I didn't want to be distracted. Distraction is what had gotten me to this point. And on this afternoon, I wanted to travel with purpose. When I went around the corner of the building into the Daily Plaza, I saw that Tara was already there waiting for me, standing in the shadow of the Picasso. And in that moment, I fantasized that I would start running towards her and I'd yell her name. She would look at me and start running towards me in slow motion. We would crash together and spin each other around in the sun and fall down in a giggling pile on the warm cement, much to the consternation of the passing businessmen. Like in a movie. Instead, I just walked towards her with my hands in my pocket and my head down until we accidentally made eye contact. And we smiled, happy to see each other, but when we leaned in for a really familiar yet awkward hug, we both burst into tears, which nobody noticed, like how it really happens. We didn't have much time. It was almost 2:00, and there was a line at the metal detector. So I grabbed Tara's hand in mine, squeezed it, and we entered the building where we were about to end 7 years of marriage. When your last name starts with a W, like mine does, there's some things coming with that. You always have to sit in the back of the room. The chocolate milk is always sold out by the time you get through the cafeteria line. And you get divorced last. I was used to it after a lifetime of alphabetical oppression. And Tara was about to ascend back up to the middle class of the M's. So we just found a seat on a bench, still holding hands, and sat down, waiting. And as we did this, we got to see the undercard to our own personal main event. There were some interesting points. There, like the man who, when he was standing up there, said that he was standing alone, and he told the judge that his soon-to-be ex-wife could not be there because she had already moved to another country with the man that she had left him for. Tara leaned over and said, "Poor guy." Then there was the man who, arguing with his soon-to-be ex-wife, demanded both the house in Arlington Heights and the vacation villa in Cozumel. I leaned over and said, "Poor guy." But mostly, it was just a series of worn-out people who had nothing left to give each other, not even anger. And they stood 5 or 6 feet apart, facing forward, not making eye contact, heads down, as their lawyer spoke on their behalf, just waiting to be done, already strangers. And then it was our turn. We didn't need attorneys because the only thing we had to split up was college loan debt. And our divorce was no fault, which means nobody to blame, or in all reality, everybody was. And suddenly, the relationship that had been built through dozens of lingering touches on the steps of Leonard Hall had been built over hundreds of coffee mugs and pint glasses, and had been polished over thousands of nights in each other's arms, was over with a handful of signatures, nods, and affirmations. Through a haze of tears, I looked over at Tara. I looked over at this woman who I'd pledged my life to, who I was now taking it back from, minus the pieces that she would choose to keep for herself. And she looked at me, her chest heaving. And in that moment, we were in sync. We were more together, more truly together than we had been any time in the last 2 years. And finally, the judge asked me one more question. He said, "Mr. Whitehair, is there anything else you'd like to ask your wife?" We got back on a train together, heading towards the end of the line, which today was at Fullerton. We still held hands and used the other ones to blow our noses or wipe tears away. And we sat there as time ticked down, stop by stop, to the end of our relationship together. As we did, I thought, maybe if we only had just taken some time to Clark and Division. Maybe it's possible if, at some point we had only just North and Clybourne. When we finally stepped out onto the boards at Fullerton, for a moment, we weren't coming or going. We were just holding on to each other, fighting the flow of bodies past us. Just there. "I'm sorry," I said. "I love you," Tara said. We said anything we could think of to avoid the only 2 syllables left. And then we let go. She disappeared with the flow of bodies down the stairs to a dinner shift and another life. I stood alone on that platform, knowing that whatever came next, whichever train came around that bend, I had to get on it just to get moving again. Thank you.